Welcome to Freedom Stein Laboratory, where truth and freedom bubble up over all of the flasks and beakers, and I guess that makes me the mad scientist because I'm not really the creature. I think I look a little bit better than him. But anywho, what we're going to talk about on this episode is, we've got this fight going on between President Donald Trump and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this is titled Free Speech, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Nick Fuentes. And what got me on that tangent was a clip that I saw from CNN. And this is Dana Bash interviewing Marjorie Taylor Greene. And let me just preface this by saying I think it was a bad idea for Marjorie Taylor Greene to go on The View. Why go over there? They hate you. It just don't give them any notice. Don't platform them with your own stuff, I guess. And I also think it's a bad idea to go on CNN and make some of the comments that she did. So what I'm going to do is I'll just go ahead. I'm going to go to this clip and share this with you guys so that you can kind of see what I am talking about here. And you'll have to excuse me as I figure out how to do all of this stuff behind the scenes and how to share screens and all that good stuff. All right, here we go. I think I've got the screen on that I want. Hang on 1 minute here. Let me just... All right, and I'm going to share the sound so that you can hear what I hear. All right, we're going to share this one. Here we go. Okay, let's go ahead and play this.
I do want to ask you about something you posted just yesterday on X. You questioned who and what country is putting so much pressure on Trump to keep the Epstein files hidden. And you included a picture about donations from pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. What are you trying to say there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's the question that many Americans are asking, especially when we saw information recently come out in these emails that the Oversight Committee that I serve on has released. And we saw Jeffrey Epstein with ties to Ehud Barak. We saw him making business deals with them, also business deals that involved the Israeli government and seems to have led into their intel agencies. And I think the right question is to ask is, was Jeffrey Epstein working for Israel? And I'm proud to say I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't take money from any special group of people. I'm just representing my district and the American people. And so that's what I was referring to.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying Israel is pushing the president of the United States to cover up the Epstein files? And what evidence do you have that that is the case?
I simply just asked out loud, is there a foreign government? It could be any foreign government, but is a foreign government pushing?
Hey, let me just stop Marjorie right there. Come on. I mean, if you're going to put that stuff out there, then just own it. Own it. Please own it. Yes. You're not talking about just any foreign government. You specifically have AIPAC. Dana is going to go ahead and point that out. Just own it, please, because that is what you think. When you go on here and you do this little mealy mouth stuff, I hate that.
To keep this covered up because people just don't understand the big fight against.
Well, you had AIPAC up there. It was pretty clear which government you were talking about.
Yeah, it was.
That I'm questioning that government in particular and questioning any other foreign government.
Yeah, she's trying to smooth it out.
You're talking about lowering the rhetoric, which is important for everybody to hear from you and all of our elected officials. But there is some concern, a lot of concern among Republicans about the rise of anti-Semitic hard-right figures in your movement, especially after Tucker Carlson hosted white nationalist Nick Fuentes on his podcast, didn't question Fuentes about his vile language or views. You did speak at a conference hosted by Fuentes back in 2022. You were criticized, and you said then that you didn't know about his views. Well, Fuentes talked to Carlson about that in the interview. Listen to what he said.
Well, again, with Marjorie, I was a friend of hers, and she spoke at my conference, and then the day after, she pretended like she didn't know me. She pretended like she didn't know me and lied and said I had no idea the conference I was speaking at. She knew exactly what it was.
What do you say to that?
Okay, before Marjorie answers that question, obviously, let me just point out here that I don't think it was a good idea for Tucker Carlson to have Nick Fuentes on his show because of the way that he handled it. When Tucker had Ted Cruz on, he went after Ted Cruz really hard, which I was happy to have him do that because I'm disgusted by Ted Cruz at this point. But he didn't do the same thing with Nick Fuentes, and Nick Fuentes deserves that because he is a vile person. I would never platform Nick Fuentes. And the way that Tucker has tried to explain that away is to say, well, it's almost like he was trying to say it was a teaching moment and he was trying to open Nick's eyes to this. And I'm like, Nick doesn't need a teaching moment. He's set where he's at, and he should have been called on a lot of the things that he has said. And I wish that's what Tucker would have done. So that's the only reason I have an issue with Tucker Carlson having him on. Otherwise, I'm perfectly fine. You have this guy on, but go after him in the same way you would go after anybody.
Well, first of all, I defend every single person's free speech rights. I think that's incredibly important. So I don't apologize for that, and I don't believe in canceling people. And I think it's important for people like Tucker Carlson and yourself to interview everyone. I don't believe in trying to cancel someone by refusing to interview them and question them. And I did speak at his conference back in 2022. However, I don't know Nick Fuentes. He's someone I've never exchanged text messages with or phone calls, but I did speak at his conference. That was the first time I had met him that day, and that.
And let me just jump in here real quick. We'll go back to that in a minute. If you're going to speak at a conference, I would think that you would make sure you know exactly where you're going and who you're speaking on behalf of or with. Let's say that there was an anti-Universal Studios monster convention, and for some reason they asked me to come speak there. And then I get there and people who are like me love the Universal monsters are like, you went to this conference that like pushes back against that, wants to destroy all of that, and doesn't agree with having these Universal movie monsters and stuff. That would look really bad. So why would you not make sure where you're speaking before? So again, I don't like it when people do this little mealy mouth thing. I love that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a firebrand and she speaks her mind and she's not going along with the group. But then on the flip side, she doesn't want to own whatever else is going on here. So I'm like, just be authentic. Can we get people to be authentic? I don't know. All right, let's go back and continue with what she's saying here, because now we're going to get into this discussion about free speech and hate speech.
Was it. But I did watch the interview. I watched the full interview with Tucker, and I admire him for interviewing many people as well as exposing a lot of powerful information.
I hear what you're saying.
He does on his show.
I hear what you're saying about free speech. I mean, count me as guilty as a proponent of free
Bull
speech.
crap.
There's free speech, and then there is hate speech. And this is a man invited on a really...
Okay, this is the problem with the media. This is the way that they've always done that whole free speech thing. First of all, it's not free speech. It's freedom of speech. There's not like a moniker there about free speech. This is free speech, and this is hate speech, and this is color speech, and this is whatever speech. There aren't different like categories. It's freedom of speech, period. I say it all the time. I support burning the American flag, the right for those people to burn the American flag as their free speech. I hate it. I think it's disgusting, but I will fight to the end for you to be able to burn that American flag over there. If you say vile, horrible things, I support your right to say that. You can say whatever you want to. The only limits that we have is if you go after somebody and disparage them and try to denigrate their character, then they can sue you in a public space. So there are consequences for the things that you say. And you realize that when you say those things, and that's what you're going to get. So you just accept that as a part of having freedom of speech. There is no such thing as like hate speech, and now we have to limit that. You don't do that. There is no limits. There is only your consequences for the things that you say. So when Nick Fuentes says really vile things, it makes people move away from him and not want to be a part of him and reject him and not platform him. Those are the consequences for that, that you can't get your channel up on YouTube, Nick Fuentes, because they don't accept that or whatever. You're having a hard time platforming yourself over here or wherever. That's a consequence of the way that you speak. But I will support your right to do that all day long. And again, I think Nick Fuentes is a racist and an anti-Semite and a white nationalist. He's all of those things. So he is vile, but I will support that all day long. And this is one of the issues I have with the mainstream media is they want to be the ones to say, this is what this is what that is, this is okay, this isn't okay, and we're going to shut this down. No. Now, you don't have to have anybody on CNN that you don't want to have because that's CNN's right to do, again, platform whoever you want. But for you to go around and say, well, we're just going to start labeling these things and this is okay and this isn't okay, that isn't the way that America works. That's not the way our Constitution was set up, and that's not the way that the founders had things set. Let's finish this up here.
Prominent conservative show who said even during that interview he had a problem with, quote, organized Jewry, and he wasn't challenged on it. In the past, he has denied the Holocaust, called Adolf Hitler effing cool, talked about the fact that he thought Jim Crow was just fine, and on and on.
Horrible thing.
So again, there's free speech, and then there's just hateful language and sentiments.
So that's what you should have said. Marjorie should have gone.
I told you on this interview that I'm committed to ending the toxic politics. And I think I don't want to have anything to do with it. You should have Nick Fuentes on your show, and you could ask him questions about that. I myself am not anti-Semitic. I have never criticized the Jewish people or said anything about them in particular. I am critical of the government of Israel, and I can criticize any government I want to in the entire world as well as our own. And a lot of the times I am criticizing our own government for failing the American people. And I think that needs to be the focus, and that's the most important thing people care about, is being able to afford groceries, housing, health insurance, and having a good quality of life.
Yeah, and I hear you saying you're not anti-Semitic, and you've said it before, and you know, some of the posts that you have put up, which you have apologized for, certainly have tropes in them that have been used historically against Jews. But I do want to, okay, so on that, I do want to ask you about something.
And of course, Dana Bash had to get that in there, you know. Sorry about this, guys.
Sure, about donations from.
All right. Okay. Yeah, so she had to get that last little in there, you know. Oh, you certainly have tropes, but you have apologized for them. So that's where I stand when it comes to what they call free speech and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nick Fuentes. And what I would really wish is that instead of Marjorie Taylor Greene just saying, I want to tone down the rhetoric, because we know they're not going to do that. And honestly, I don't really want you to tone down fighting back against the left. And I don't want you to partner with them in bad ways. But I also, it's amazing watching this little civil war that we have going on in the Republican Party or on the right. And you don't see this a lot on the left. This is why they get so much stuff done and why they're able to destroy the country in such not a wonderful way, but in such a effective way, I guess is how I want to put that, because they stick together. I mean, they're like a bunch of lemmings. They will run off the cliff together. Whereas those of us who are on the right, this is why we have an issue coming together and being as effective as we could be, because we're so attached to our liberty. And so that's one of the things I think that's going to keep us from ever being able to overcome what's going on the left, I guess, because we are so liberty minded and freedom. And that's why you watch us splinter over here, because we're like, no, I believe firmly in what I believe in. And I'm not going to go off the cliff with you guys just because that means we're going to win, because in the end, you're over the cliff. And that's what the Democrats, it's like once they get all over that cliff and they find out their country's gone, I don't know what they're going to do, or whether they're going to care. I mean, you look at places like Seattle is a wonderful thing to look at to see what the future of America could be. It's like Seattle, although I hate the rain and everything, it's a pretty beautiful place over there on the northwest coast there and that state. And they just voted in a socialist as their mayor. Like, I am a socialist. She put that out there. There's no the Democrat they had wasn't lefty enough, I guess, for them. So now they've moved even farther to the left. And then New York City with Mamdani. Again, we're going to vote in a socialist mayor. So now we're going to be watching Seattle and New York City to see what happens in those cities. We already know what's going to happen because socialism has never worked. It will never work. While capitalism right now doesn't look like it works well, capitalism works well when you don't pile up debt, because that's part of the problem that we're having here is that when you've got all this debt, it's hard for capitalism to make it good for everybody, because there's so many people who are so far into debt, they're never going to see the light. And it's interesting that everybody's talking about like the housing crisis and this 50-year mortgage, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. And they're saying, well, now the main, the mean age for people to buy their first home is 40. Well, that is when I bought my first home, was when I was 40. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes it does take you that long to get there, but it also means you're not going to be able to just buy a starter home, because that's probably the home you're going to be in for the good part of your life. I hear these statistics that people change out their homes every 5 to 10 years. And I'm like, who is moving like that often? I was when I was in an apartment. So I know what part of the answer is we've got to stop spending so much money and allowing all of this debt to just keep racking up. But a lot of that is on a personal level. People have to make a decision to no longer be in debt. Before I moved to Florida, which was 18 years ago, I was like, I have to be out of debt. All the credit card debt, school loan debts, everything has to be gone before I can move from Colorado to Florida. And I did it. I did it in a year and a half. I paid off $33,000 in debt. And I have never carried a credit card balance since. For 18 years, I've never carried a balance, never had a fee or a fine. The credit card companies probably hate me. They don't make any money off of me other than the 3% that they get when you use their card. So it's possible to live that way. You just have to make the decision to do that. And I put off getting a house until I was in a place where I was ready to do it. Now I am in debt with a mortgage, but it's not that much, and I should have it paid off. I took out a 30-year. Here's what most people should do. If you can't take out a 15-year, which is the best way to do it, take out the 30-year and try to pay it in 15, because there's no penalty for most loans to pay them off early. And you just start putting more money towards that principal, and that's what we've been doing. And we should have our house paid in 15 years. And that'll be by the time we retire. So then we'll own the house. And hopefully our governor's trying to get rid of property tax. So, I mean, if he does that, we're going to be sitting good, other than the insurance, which is outrageous here in Florida. I mean, our homeowners insurance has doubled every single year pretty much for the last 7 years. And it has gotten pretty close to being untenable almost. There's a lot of people that, they have a house and they don't even think about just getting somebody into a house. Like when you're paying your rent could go up every year, and that is a fear that you have to live under. But it's kind of the same thing when you're in a house, because your property tax and your insurance can change at any time. I know that just the base house payment, without us putting any extra towards principal, has gone up over $300 a month, just based on all of those things changing. So while just the house payment without the escrow stuff But I guess that's the way it is. So, what do you guys think about free speech and, Tucker having Nick Fuentes on and this fight between Marjorie Taylor Greene and President Trump? I wish they could find common ground because they were friends with each other and she was a firebrand for him. But I think the reason why she's pulling back is because he's changed. He's not where he was. And I appreciate everything that he has gotten done for us. Believe me, I would rather have him in there than Kamala or however you say her name. Oh my God, can you imagine where we'd be right now with that dumb twit? I mean, so I'd rather be where we're at now, but what I want is the Trump that we were guaranteed, we were told we were going to get. I want that. I don't know where that went. So hopefully he starts to bring it back in. Or I don't know what's going to happen to this country. But you guys have a fabulous day. And I want to thank you all for joining me. And please follow, subscribe, like, what have you. Freedom Stein Laboratory. And you can see that both at, I'm up on Rumble and YouTube right now. Thanks.